Hello, welcome to the next tutorial for the Quest, and in this we're going to be looking at making the torch work. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our torch, zoom right in. Now this torch was very quickly made in Blender, so nothing special, but what I'm going to do is make sure we have a rigid body. I'm going to make sure that we've got a box collider, and just like with the gun, we need to make sure the box collider is of the right size. So right now it is massive, so let's just shrink that down a little bit. So I'm going to edit collider, just going to bring, oops, missed that, slight misclick, just going to drag it down to about that size, just in a little bit, in a little bit more, bring it back up, come to the other view, shrink it down a little bit. I'm sure I could have imported a mesh collider or something, but I'll just keep it like that for now. So I've got the torch with the box collider. If we quickly remind ourselves about the pistol, so the pistol was not a trigger, but on the rigid body it is kinematic. So we're going to do the same thing. Back on that, we're going to click kinematic. It's not a trigger, and that should be good enough for us for being able to make the collision work. Okay, so what's next? I want to turn the light off. Because I'm going to use a torch, I want to make sure it's not as bright, so I'm going to go directional light, turn that off. I'm also going to go into window, rendering, lighting, environment, and I'm just going to turn this off. I'm going to click on default skybox, delete, because the skybox also illuminates the scene, and I'm just going to turn I'll turn that down a little bit as well. That can make a bit of a difference. Again, these are worth playing about with, experimenting, and maybe look up some of the tutorials on lighting. Okay, so I've now got quite a dark scene. Let's zoom back in on the torch. And what I want to do is add a point light to this. Now, I've got to remember is the Oculus, sorry, the Meta Quest is an Android device, so it's not massively powerful when it comes to lights. So I'm going to add a spotlight. I'm going to come into the full side view. I'm going to move that up a little bit, just so it's about there. So look from the back. Yep, that's central enough for my likings. I'm just going to come to the top view, zoom right out up some more. Okay, I'm going to play about with the size of that light by clicking on range. So I'm going to extend the range. I think about 15 should do. I'm going to change the angle down a little bit. This is again going to be down to your personal taste. So again, play about with it, experiment a bit. So that'll do. I'm going to change the brightness up a little bit. We can see it's already reflecting, well, not reflecting, shining on that wall. And because I did it inside the torch, when I remove the torch, the light will go with it, which is exactly what we want. So it's parented to the torch itself. Okay, so what's next? We've now got our torch. We've set the rendering. So what we now need to do is make a script. I'm going to actually turn the torch off by clicking on spotlight, clicking on light, so it's now off. So because we're going to turn it on and off with the trigger of the button. So I'm going to click on torch. I'm going to come down into our scenes, tutorial 8. Well, this is 8B now. I'm going to create a new script, C# script, and I'm going to call this torch. Pick up and use. And like I said in the last session, we really should be moving towards object-oriented programming, but we'll have to come back to that in a later lesson. For now, just keep it kind of simple. Okay, so it's very similar to the gun. In fact, it's almost identical to the gun. But what I'm going to be doing is just not having it when you pull the trigger, it fires a bullet. So just like last time, I'm going to start with a start transformation, so it remembers where it came from. The control is going to be picking it up. Has it been picked up, and which hand has picked it up? But I also want to bring in the light. Now again, I could use code to get an instance of the light. I just found this as a quicker way of doing it by public light torchlight. In our start command, it's just the same as we did in the last two sessions, where when it starts, it records where its current position and rotation is. So when you press the button, it'll bounce back. Okay, so we're going to go into our update function, where I'm going to just grab the code from one I made previously, and I'll just talk through it. So the first bit, just like last time, is if hand equals R. So if it's the right hand that's picked it up, and we're pressing button 2, and the right hand is in use, then we're going to put the torch back down. But what I'm really interested in is this turn it on bit. So I'm saying we're going to have if the trigger right, if the we're going to get the index, how much have you squeezed it. If it's greater than 0.9, just like pulling the trigger for the gun, then I'm going to say torchlight done enabled equals true. And if the trigger is less than 1, it's going to turn the torch off. And then I can do the exact same thing for the left hand. So if I just drag that code across. So again, if the hand is actually left hand, we can say, I've just realised I've missed a little bit out. I'm going to have to add that now. So if the hand is left, again, that's saying we're putting it back down. But what I also want to do is copy this code again, that if it's the left hand that's actually picked up the torch, see I've not tested it, and I'm going to just nip back to our gun use, just remind ourselves what the button was. So it was just the left index trigger. So again, I can just change that one little bit. Obviously, we want to say left. No, we don't want to say left. This time we can just put that to L, index trigger. If trigger left. Again, if you're copying like I am, just make sure you have copied everything over, because this is where it can be really easy. You copy paste, don't make the right edits, and then it doesn't work the way you're expecting. I seem to have got a bit of a dyslexic moment going off there with trigger left and trigger light. There we go, trigger left. So again, we've now released it, so this should now pick up and turn on and off. I'm just going to add the same bit of code from last time, and this is exactly why we should be using object-oriented programming and using inheritance, because we are now duplicating code, which as soon as I find myself duplicating the functions, then it's time to do something about it. I don't like copying and pasting code and duplicating. So outside of our update function, if you notice I just scrolled up and down to make sure I was outside the right one. We just want to do our on trigger enter, just like we did last time. So on trigger enter, and again, if the right hand's not in use, then we can pick it up. If the left hand's not in use, we can pick up the left hand, and so on. So that should be our code done. I'm just going to save that. Always important to save. I'm going to come back into Unity. It's going to compile the code. Just have to wait a moment. Okay. So now I go back onto the torch. I'm going to drag our torch pick up and use and drag it on. Now if you notice it says torch light, there's nothing attached, so I'm just going to drag our spotlight onto that, so now it knows that's the torch we want to turn on and off. So you could hook this up to other kind of light sources too. Okay, so now last few settings, file, build settings. I just want to make sure that I've chosen this scene, because I'm still on the one that I've just did last time. I'm just going to add our current scene, so untick that one, and now I can press build and run. Yep, I'll save over that, and then I shall see you in a moment if this has worked. Okay, here we are in the game. I'm going to teleport over to the torch. I'm going to pick the torch up. Oops, there we go. Now I've picked it up, so the torch is not shining. So when I squeeze the trigger, it isn't doing anything. Okay, so a quick inspection of the code. I made a little bit of a mistake, and that's why it wasn't working. As I was very quickly copying and pasting, if we notice, what I basically did was, here was the if hand is equal to capital L, then we could put it down. And then when I was copying the trigger stuff across, I put it in the wrong place, and it was causing it to always think it'd been put down. So if I just grab this bit of code, move it up, put it inside. So again, when you are copying and pasting code, you've got to be really careful about where you put it. It's so easy just to put it in the wrong place. You know, just miss a brace out, miss a bracket, and it doesn't function. So let's go try that again. So obviously I'm going to have to wait for it to compile. Okay, and let's go build and run. So here we are back in the game. Let's go and see how it's working. So if I just, there we go, I can pick up the gun, and I can shoot. And then if I just teleport a bit over there, I can pick up the torch and I can shine the torch. Now if we can see it's sort of fading away the further away I go. If I forget my desk's in the way. There we go, so I can now use the gun and I can shoot. So I've used separate things. Now I have just noticed there is something not quite working. which is the left hand's not picking the gun up. So I'm going to have to go back and just check to see which bit of code I copied wrong. Okay, back in the code, and yep, again, it's the same mistake. It's just me trying to rush a little bit there. If hand equals R, come down here, and I've put it inside. So I'm just going to pull this right down, right to the end of the little bit. Let's grab that section, just double check where we're going. Yeah, I'm just going to cut that out. So that was the end of if. Okay, so I've gone outside of the right hand. Let's just close that little gap a little bit. Just enter. Okay, so I've now got if hand equals L. There we go, so if left hand, and then finally the whole if it's true, keep it to the controller. If you've not got it picked up, put it back where it came from. Again, like I said last time, we should really do something more efficient with that. So we should now have a fully working thing. And I've left these mistakes in to just show you that these things do happen. Clumsy code, clumsy copy and paste, misspelling a variable somewhere. Before you know it, it's not working, can somehow take ages to spot. So let's try one more time. Okay, so let's pick up the gun with the right hand, let's pick up the torch with the left hand. There's the torch, there's the gun shooting, and hopefully if I've done this correct, trying different hands, there we go, all working. Okay, so there we have it, our next method of picking up and using objects. So your next step would be, what other objects could you pick up and how could you make them have an action function? Maybe look at different controls so it's not just the trigger. Again, if you've watched this far, thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, leave a positive comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.